Welcome back to another episode of MotoGP Mac, and today we're going to talk about the epic MotoGP race that just happened at the Australian Grand Prix in Phillip Island. Now, before we get into it, here's how it finished. Marquez won it from Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia, Fabio Di Giannantonio, Enea Bastianini, Franco Morbidelli, Brad Binder, Maverick Vinales, Fabio Quartararo, Raul Fernandez, Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, Alex Rins, Luca Marini, Alex Marquez, Aleix Espargaro, Augusto Fernandez, Taka Nakagami, Marco Bezzecchi was the last one across the line. Joan Mir crashed and Lorenzo Savadori also retired to the pits. Now, for me, I think it was an absolutely brilliant race. Definitely worth getting up for at 4 a.m. Irish time to watch. So, it had an absolute bit of everything. There was fierce battles to patience and time and see who could get the best out of it. And, when we look at how Mark started, very, very unlucky and unfortunate that he took off a tear off from his visor. And when he went to push it away, it went under the rear wheel of his bike. And when he took off at the start, he just spun straight up on that tear off. He went down to like 11th place at turn 1. I believe it's 11, could be more. And he just battled his way back through. He said himself, after a couple of laps, his rhythm came in and he knew where he wanted to go. It would have been epic to see if he did get the start, how he would have battled with Martin Pecco and them from the very start. But I think no one really had an answer to Marc Marquez today. I think, when I was looking at him coming through Stoners and the last corner especially, last corner I think he was gaining about 2.5 tenths of a second on Jorge Martin alone. So it was absolutely epic, and it's probably the best ride I've ever seen from Marc Marquez. Jorge Martin, he did absolutely nothing wrong today. I think he ran wide 2 or 3 times in corners, and when I mean wide, he was maybe a meter offline. He was absolutely brilliant, and he probably did have the tools to battle with Marquez, but the risk to do so probably was not worth it. Mark had nothing to lose, so he had nothing to fear, whereas Jorge Martin, a successful weekend for him now, putting the championship lead out to 20 points. It was out at 25 points, which is nearly checkmate for Pecco. Like, for me, if it ended up at 25 points today, at the end of today's race, Martin could have finished second in every race, with Pecco having to win every race. So it's definitely would have been kind of one of the checkmate moves, let's just call it. Pecco, he just didn't have the pace today. It was very, very straight, and you could see it, turning in, he didn't have the confidence to push the bike through the corner, so he couldn't actually hang with them. And you could see once he got maybe about 1.5 seconds behind, you could see he just settled. Fabio Di Giannantonio had a fairly good race. Okay, people going out in front of him and stuff like that, but he did have a very, very good race. Towards the end of the race, he was setting his fastest laps of the race. Like, he did a 28.2 in lap 27 compared to Pecco did like a 30. Do you know what I mean? So he did. He had a good lot of pace for him. Enea Bastianini a little bit disappointed for see where he finished. Normally Enea comes on in late half of the race, and this is kind of one of the circuits where you needed to mind your tires. So I thought Bastianini would come along a little bit more, but it is what it is. Solid now 4th in the championship for Bastianini. Franco Morbidelli did okay. He was there or thereabouts with Pecco at the start and then, but kind of did drop back. Similar story for Brad Binder. He was up with Pecco and them for the first opening laps, but then did fall backwards. Maverick Vinales did a solid race. I won't say a great race, but he did a solid race. But then, saying that, I have to give Maverick credit. He come off a bike at 140, 50 mile an hour, the way he did yesterday. I think, it's not a bad result for him today, well ahead of any other um, Aprilia rider. Fabio Quartararo, solid as well, and it is good to see Fabio into the top 10, but again, he wasn't really threatening anyone in front of him. He did have a decent battle with Raul Fernandez and Jack Miller, if I'm fair, who were all kind of within a second of Fabio. Johan Zarco, not a bad race for the Honda, coming home ahead of Alex Rins. Luca Marini also kind of in that battle, a small bit back from it, but good enough overall race. Alex Marquez, he did have a long lap penalty, but when you're looking at the top 6 are Ducatis and you're the next one, back down in 15th, a ride through isn't the only reason that you're there. He didn't seem to have the actual pace this weekend. Aleix Espargaro, still very surprised with him. You could see he was in the 29 and a halves towards the end of the race, so it wasn't, the pace just wasn't there for him. Augusto Fernandez, had a good battle actually with Aleix Espargaro to finish 1/10 of a second behind him, and also Taka Nakagami was involved in that battle. Marco Bezzecchi, he was in second place for the opening couple of laps. I think there'll be a friendly word for Bezzecchi. I don't think Pecco will be too happy with him because, look, realistically, it was a non-race for him. While he was up there, he was in second place. He had a ride-through penalty, and if you do look at it, he was holding Pecco up, or he was going to make Pecco make moves maybe that he didn't need to make and risk an awful lot. So I think there'll be a few words in the VR46 camp about that, you know what I mean? He did it in the sprint yesterday, and you're kind of like, okay, fair enough. But today, when he already had the long lap penalty, he was in a battle where he shouldn't have been even battling. Do you know what I mean? Lap 1, they gave him the flag, and I get it that he was trying to maybe build a gap so that the long lap wouldn't cause him so much damage. I spread it a small bit, but realistically, it turned out to be a non-runner because he did crash in the Miller corner later on. Joan Mir, obviously, look, not a great weekend. Crashed on with 2 laps to go, and Lorenzo Savadori didn't actually see what happened to him. I do believe he pulled into the pits with around 10 laps to go also. All in all, I thought it was an absolutely epic race. Phillip Island is just one of those tracks that you want to watch at every weekend. But I definitely think the outstanding rider of the day has to be Marc Marquez, hands down. Martin was good, but Marquez was better than absolutely everyone today. And it just kind of does show you, there's a lot of people talking about Marquez and, he's on the year-old bike. Phillip Island turns things on its head, and, it's all about the rider. It's not about the bike. But I would definitely love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the race, and who was your rider of the day? Definitely leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video.